Hello and welcome back to ABG Investor Days. My name is Rebecca Järdrup and I work as an equity analyst here at ABG. With us today we have Jörgen Nilsson, the CEO of Doro, who will give us a presentation of the company. So Jörgen, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Jörgen Nilsson, CEO for Doro. I thought I would start off by asking you a question, and my question to you is this. Do you consider yourself ever becoming a senior? Can you see yourself ever using something like this, like an old fixed line phone with big keys and stuff like that? Probably not. I can't tell how old you are because I can't see you, but I assume you're all in your late 20s like me, give and take. A few years back when I joined Doro, I felt that how are we going to make a future out of this? Could there surely not be a future of this? Then my daughter called me up one day and she said, I'm going to have some beauty surgery. And I was devastated. I went to my wife and we were like, oh my God, what's she going to do? So when she got home for Christmas, we kind of carefully examined her to see, is there any silicone somewhere where we don't want it? But it just turned out that she'd put a chip in her finger between her index and her thumb. Hopefully you can see that on the slide too. In that chip, she had then integrated the entry cards to her university. So when she went to go into university or went to go to the dorm or to the subway or whatever, she would just put her hand forward instead of using it as a normal swipe card. And she went, Dad, you got to try it too. Now, I've been with computers since mid-80s, started out with a Commodore 64, VIC-64, for those of you who might remember that. So computers is really my background, and I really feel 100% comfortable with technology. But when she told me, you need to put a chip in your hand, for the first time in my then almost 50-year-old life, I started doubting. Not sure about that. And that actually got me thinking that, okay, so maybe being a senior tomorrow is not going to be so much about can I handle this, things like this. It might actually be conceptually, do I want to? Because in 15 years' time, I'm most likely going to use my iPhone or whatever, and I'm going to be making phone calls with that. And when the kids, they walk me by in the street, they're going to think, oh, look at the old guy or the old timer. He's got a handset. Because having a handset, the way you define a handset today, that's probably going to be seen as kind of senior in 15 years' time, when the kids will be making phone calls from their fingers or their glasses or whatever that's going to be. So bear that in mind. It is almost impossible for us today to fathom what technology is going to bring us to in 15 years' time. And every time we take a leap in humankind, it goes so fast and the leaps are so big. So it seems weird, and I don't think you guys will ever go back to these types of phones, but these types of phones are the stuff that people who are born in the 20s will use today. And like it or not, seniors become more and more. In a few years' time, 25% of the European Union is going to be 65 years or older. That's every fourth person. That's over 125 million seniors. Fair enough. Some of them will be born in the 1920s, and they probably will be using something like that. The ones who turn seniors and retire today, they're born in 1957. And for those of you from Sweden, soon we're moving into what we call the ironic generation. It's the Killinggänget with all those guys, Robert Gustafsson and all these guys, for those of you guys who are from Sweden. And when they turn seniors, they will have other needs. The interesting thing is that the seniors we have today, or what we call the baby boomers, are very, very powerful in terms of economy, etc. They were the big first-scale people who went to university. They were the ones who could buy an apartment at a decent price in the hundreds of thousands, or a house for that matter. And today they can sell it for a couple of million. But none of them really feel talked to and seen by the businesses. Most companies, they focus on, let's say, the juniors or people up to 50 or something like that. And seniors, they're almost intentionally forgotten about. 90% of the baby boomers say that they believe that brands are not interested in them at all. And when there is marketing to seniors, it's either somebody who's really, really fragile and shaking around with a stroller, or it's a purple-haired grandmother skydiving with a Harley Davidson out of a helicopter. And neither of that can be further away from the truth. What is true, though, that as we get older, there are new challenges. Almost everyone has problems with their vision. We all start wearing glasses to be able... I'm sure that some of you will be starting to do like this, and you read newspapers and stuff like that. You don't get away from it. Every third person has a problem with a hearing. Ask my teenage daughters, they tell me I hear nothing. I'm just telling them it's selective hearing. Half of seniors have a confidence problem. My mother used to run. She was like the manager of a travel agency. Today, she doesn't really want to travel to my sister in the UK because she feels unsafe or uncertain at the airport. I can't believe it. 40% of all seniors have dexterity problems. That is, to pick up, hold and handle, to monitor and operate things. as you age, you get pruning in your fingertips, and you have less feeling in your fingertips and possibility of operating items. And then almost 80% of all seniors say there's a big problem with ageism. And ageism is, according to Ashton Applewhite, which I think put it very well, I'm going to read her, ageism is the stereotyping or discrimination of individuals based on their age. It's also the last acceptable prejudice, or at least the one that we people still don't really think of. And she normally says, just go down in any kind of supermarket and pick up one of those birthday cards, and you'll see ageism. The pictures on happy birthday, happy 30th birthday for the 40th time, etc., etc. We also use a lot of expressions, demeanor expressions. I use myself. I might as well say, oh, I had a senior moment, or I have one foot in the grave, etc., etc. And we don't think about it. We as companies tend not to think about it, which is super stupid. And then I'm just talking about the way we perceive, but there are lots of other things. If you're not part of the online society, how do you do when you want to find a telephone number? How do you do when you want to pay your bills? How do you get around without the bank ID? Maybe you have a bank ID, but you can't upgrade it. What if you want to buy a ticket at the state railway or the subway? How do you get it wrong? How do you do contact with authorities, doctors, social securities? Or how do you even read a menu on restaurants when the menus are so printed with such a small font? All of these are typical things of ageism, although many of them are unintentional. For us at Doro, this is something we passionately believe in fighting. We challenge all kinds of ageism and all kinds of exclusion of seniors in everything we do. And we do so by thinking differently about seniors. We always try to make products which are easy to use, easy to pick up, easy to hold and handle, perfectly fitted to our customers' needs. And we've done so for almost 50 years. We've been around since 1974. We've sold more than 20 million of these senior phones with an assistance key in the back. We're still selling 2 million devices every year. And we sell it through a network of 300 leading mobile operators, network operators, retailers, and distributors. We're basically everywhere we want to be in Europe. But for the last 5 years, most of our focus has been on care, growing as a care business. Some of you might have followed us, and you know that since of December last year, we've now split that up. So our care business is a separate company, and we who are still here, we are the consumer-oriented business. We will be focusing only on consumer hardware and software to help seniors. Well, I'll allude to that shortly. I just also want to say that in everything we've done, it might seem to you as it's just a simple phone like this. And it does look like a simple phone. But in every little aspect of these devices, not only these phones, but the other phones, there is a thought behind it. One of my favorite examples is the speaker on the rear. You see there's a speaker, you get 70 decibel out of it. That's, of course, if you have it this way. If you put it on the table or the couch or whatever, you will mute the speaker and you won't hear those 70 decibel as easily. Well, actually, that's where our engineers thought differently. So they've created a dome, a little hole behind the speaker. So it doesn't matter if the speaker is facing downwards or upwards or in your pocket or anything, you will still get 70 decibel out of it, and therefore you as a senior will hear it. And I could easily talk away my 20 minutes here talking about all the aspects, about the concave and convex keys, about the assisted hearing, etc., etc. But what seems to you as a normal little, very simple phone is for all practical purposes a smartphone, because it's a smartphone chipset, with a smartphone operating system in a foldable shape with lots of small things in it. And why do I talk so much about this? Well, still today, because we were focusing on care for 5 years, 75% of all our revenue comes from what we call feature phones. We still make smartphones, and we also do some other gadgets, but we have big hopes for the future. And I know some of you are thinking, how can you really think about that, even talking about it? Because feature phones, surely the old kind of phones are just going straight down the bucket. Well, yes and no. The so-called mainstream feature phone, that is the normal feature phones which are not adapted for seniors, they have been going down the bucket. For us, during the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2019, when we were only focusing on care, our CAGR was just -1%. So we basically maintained our market share without really focusing on it. Yes, it's true, we've had COVID, and we also decided a couple of years ago that we would exit some markets and we would actually focus everything on care, and therefore our CAGR the last 3 years has been -3. But do bear in mind that when people talk about feature phones, the classic old phones, disappearing, dropping from 5 to 20%, depending on region to region, from quarter to quarter, our CAGR, without really having the attention of us, have been going -3% over this year. So there's still some really good money to make, and which I think that our latest annual report showed, especially in Q4, when we had amazing EBIT, the highest ever, I think, in the history of Doro. So I just want to point that out, that as we're now going to move in, I'm going to show you the last 10 minutes here about what we're going to do in the future. We have a solid basis to stand on. We will continue making these simple devices and make quite good money out of that. And then we will use that to invest in the future. So we feel that we have a unique opportunity. Why? Because although you might not have seen it so much, and especially out in Europe, there has been very little marketing. When we do surveys with our customers, we see that our brand is quite well recognized and it's also distinctly associated. There's some 41 million people in our top 4 car markets who associated Doro and knew what that was. And 50% of them associated with seniors, which is true, but almost as many with the fact that they're easy to use and that they're value for money. That's a really good strength for a company that basically never spent money on marketing. That is even further emphasized when you look at what customers are willing to pay for. Because the simple truth is, yes, it is a smartphone, but most customers, they say, surely this must be cheaper. It's not. In most cases, this costs as much as a normal smartphone. And if we look at the gross margin and compare apples with apples, or Doro with Apple, you'll see it's basically only Apple out of our competitors that can beat us in terms of gross margin. Mind you, this is Apple hardware, not Apple software. That would be a completely different thing. So people seem to be willing to pay for our brand because they know I need a senior product for my senior, for my mother, for my grandmother, might well be. Therefore, I'm willing to pay a premium. And we see it even more when we look at the GfK numbers for Europe, for our top 4 markets. We sell every 4th phone, but we account for almost 40% of the value. So our big competitors, Nokia, Alcatel, and these guys, they're moving big volumes every now and then, but there's not much value to it. That we see as a great opportunity. On top of that, we got some very nice recognition. There's a company called Google who makes an operating system called Android. I'm sure you've heard of it. They thought that what we do with our smartphones, and I'm sorry I have the smartphone over there. Maybe I could ask you to get me the smartphone. Sorry for that. Our smartphones have been recognized by Google. They look like, oops, they look like that. So Google actually paid for a nationwide advertising campaign for us in the big newspapers in America, Bloomberg, The Economist, etc. And I think Google paid more money on that than Doro spent on marketing in all its history before. So we think there are a lot of things that we help expanding the market for Android. On top of that, as I said, we've been around for 50 years. And over the last 5 years, we've basically been focusing on care and only making the basic phones. It wasn't long ago that we still did lots of other things. And that we will do again. Also, on top of that, we are #1 in our top markets, and we have great potential in Germany. That means that if we were to develop something brand new tomorrow, whomever we call up, whether that be Carrefour, Elköp, Currys in the UK, MediaMarkt in Germany, they will take our call and they will see us because we've generated revenue and margin for them for 30 years or so. So we have a good accessibility to the network. And more importantly, and this is one of my favorites, we do so much research. These gloves, which you might see, they look a bit like Edward Scissorhand there on the left. These are gloves developed by Cambridge University, which we use in our daily work. If you put them on, you will have the dexterity and the tactility in your hand of a 75-year-old. Then you can set them for different ages. You can have 70, 80, etc. When you put these on, and then you put on the kind of, it looks like 3D glasses you see in the picture in the middle, then you can have the eyesight and the vision width and sharpness of a 75-year-old. You put those glasses on, you put the glove on, and you pick up a normal iPhone and start rattling it, you'll see how easy it falls away from your hand. That's why we do this, because we want to make sure that everything we develop is perfectly fitted for the hands of a senior. And I've been talking about seniors. That's the most thing. I mean, I normally call our staff the Talibans. People are so committed. And we know that is because our products are so highly appreciated. On a at least quarterly, if not monthly basis, we get fantastic, really heartwarming letters like the one at the bottom. I truly believe your little inexpensive phone, because they perceive it as inexpensive, saved my mother's life. Thank you on her behalf, and as well as from the bottom of my heart. Because of that little assistance key in the back, they pressed it, and the mother was taken to her. So given the background we have, given the know-how, the consumer electronics history, and really knowing what seniors are, what we want to do now going forward is we want to be the leading European technology brand for seniors. We want to take basically any technology and make it accessible for seniors. In the same way we did when we started this 20 years ago, our engineers basically took a normal phone and stripped it of everything, including SMS. You could only make phone calls, voice calls. And people and competitors back then said, how are you going to make money out of that? We actually charged a higher price. Why? Because we gave them exactly what they're needing. And this we're now applying. So we've done a serious 360 around everything for seniors. And obviously there's so many aspects of being seniors where there's need for seniors that we could actually fulfill. But with our consumer electronics background, we've zoomed in 2 major areas, which we call the smart home and the smart health. And within those, we then drilled it down a little bit further. And I won't go into all the details of that, but we will release 3 brand new product ranges this autumn. We will continue developing organically like we always did. We will also start doing partnership, because we've been approached over the years by companies who want to do partnerships with us. But since that hasn't been the focus, because we were a care company, that wasn't really of interest. And finally, if we feel we would like to expand within an area and we feel, we don't want to wait, or here's a smaller player or something similar, then we'll do an acquisition. And as I said, we will continue releasing these phones. We will continue releasing these phones. But this autumn, we're also releasing 3 brand new ranges. I don't really want to comment on the details of them because it's a little bit secret. If you're ever in Berlin in IFA in September, you're more than welcome to pass by. You'll see the worldwide launch. But for us, this is just the beginning. As we say, the future's bright, the future's grey. Grey as in grey hair. Yeah, you got that one. Thank you. 17 minutes.
Thank you very, very much, Jörgen, for the presentation. Very interesting journey, and also very interesting to follow you going forward. Can you give us a little bit more, I don't know if you can, but about the new products that you are developing and how that has been, how that journey have gone for Doro?
Yep. Well, obviously, as I said, for 5 years now, Doro's focus has been on care. So we have not really paid attention to the consumer electronics business. Now, the last year, we've been really doing this 360, looking around, saying, what could we do? And it's really fascinating when you start talking to seniors, because they have so many demands. And I normally take that example. When I was a student, I used to eat fish fingers and macaronis and stuff like that, because that was all I could afford. Today, my generation, we can eat out anywhere we want to. But I can't bloody read the menus because they're so small and the light is so dim. So I sit there with my mobile phone trying to emphasize it. So that's the kind of thinking we did. We started really broad, and we started saying, could there be smart shoes? My mother says sometimes that she gets lost when she starts walking. Okay, what about if the shoe starts vibrating to the right, she turns right. Vibrating to the left, it turns left. So the more we looked, the more possibilities we saw. And obviously our technical department, they got a little bit scared when I started talking about shoes and clothes and stuff, because that's not really our alley. So that's why we decided, let's stay, for now, within the alley where we come from, consumer electronics. And that's why we're starting with maybe a bit of a more me too, like a tablet, a smartwatch, a certain, I don't want to go into the details of this earring thing, but it's a new, really interesting thing that we're doing. But also things like a TV. My 2 sons-in-law, they basically bullied me into buying a new TV this last summer. And it's a fantastic TV. I actually put in a picture. Maybe you can see it. It's a fantastic TV. Everything beautiful, everything. The only thing is that remote control, that's the way it looks. There's not a single button on the remote control. I can't bloody work it. I can program an app and send it to it, but I can't shift channels, and I can wave to it, and I can probably get it to go and walk the dog, but I just want to change the channel or increase or decrease the sound. So then we started thinking, I'm 52. If that's a problem for me, what if we made a TV in the same way we did with our phones? We stripped them of all unnecessary. We could put it at the bottom, and it's Android, so it's fine for us. And then you can basically just do the basic. And then when the kids, the middle-aged, and their kids are out traveling in Thailand, whatever, they take pictures with their iPhone, they press a button, bang, pops up on grandmother's TV. So that's the kind of thinking we have, and that's why our biggest problem now has been kind of limiting, because we can't do everything. So this year we said, in this autumn, we're releasing 3 brand new ranges. And the ambition for next year is also 3 more brand new. We want to create a whole senior portfolio. So you walk into Elköp or Currys or Carrefour or whatever, and you'll see the senior shelf with lots of Doro products.
And that will be launched in September, right?
Yes, at IFA.
Yeah. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And about the market momentum right now with the external factors, inflation and increasing transportation costs, how is that affecting Doro now and going forward?
Sure. It's affecting us like anyone else. I mean, transportation is going up. It's been really, really hard to find components, etc. But I must say, hat off to our colleagues, and especially the guys who've been there for 30-odd years, because the suppliers we're working with in China, we basically know them since they were fishermen, so to say. You know, and it wasn't that long ago since Shenzhen was a fishing village, and today it's a fantastic megapole. So we have been able to not only secure components but deliver, and we've had some really nice feedback from our customers, and basically saying everything from Elkjøp to EEBT in the UK saying outstanding delivery for these last 2 years. So of course we have had to pay through the nose for it. I mean, we paid more for the components, we paid more for flights. We were literally looking at, can we buy sailing boats ourselves or rowing boats and get the stuff in there? Then with the Russian invasion in Ukraine, it did not become easier. Today, the transportation is going around there. But we're not affected per se. We don't have a business in the Ukraine. We don't have a business in Russia. And we've actually donated a lot of money and phone to the independence of Ukraine. So we hope that resolves. But, it makes sense. Electricity is going up. Food is going up. People are worried about the war. And I've noticed among seniors, even my own uncles are also saying, the Russians are coming. I don't think most Swedes are fearing that the Russians are coming to Sweden. But in their generation, maybe they do. And obviously, if you're paying so much more on everything else, there is this insecurity, probably you'll be more reluctant to spend money on what we call discretionary spending. So you might not go and buy that TV or that phone or something like that. So we, like all the others in the consumer electronics, we are affected.
Yeah. And talking about the gross margin, you have held that up very well during the COVID and during last year. But in the first quarter this year, we saw a lower gross margin.
Indeed.
So now that have affected Doro, and how do you expect that going forward? Will we see these lower margins for a while, and what do you believe?
I shouldn't be making statements for the future, really, but I mean, I would think if the war continues, inflation starts, I think we might have to see a slight lower margins for a while. We have very good hopes and ambitions to restore those margins. We're releasing new phones right now, and when we release new phones, our prices go up a bit, and we get a little bit more money, like all the others. When you release a new phone, that's how you basically get a new price out there. But of course, if the war extends, would this to be expanded and become a European war, a third world war, etc., it's impossible to say today. But we're pretty confident that after 2 years of staying at home, people were really keen on, there was a pent-up need for shopping and all that stuff. And then this war happens, electricity prices, and in some countries there's a cap on electricity. Here in Sweden, I have friends who paid 15,000 Swedish a month on just the heating of their house. I know a lot of friends in Austria, etc., who have had Russian gas. Obviously, people will be keeping much tighter to their pockets. So I think for a while now, the margin will be more similar to what we had in Q1, but we have very good hopes of restoring them again.
And also going back to one more question about the new products.
Yep.
Do you expect these to grow? How do you expect the growth of the new products to be in the next few years?
It's hard to say. I know where our ambition is, and we've been saying that today we basically make 1 billion out of these phones. So either we need to find one new category that makes another billion, but then again it'd be okay if we have 3 or 4 categories that make 250 million each. Then we can basically support the decline in feature phones anyway. So hard to say. Our ambition is to make about 200 million Swedish out of our inventions. The first year, but obviously we're launching them in September, so I need to calculate 12 months from there. Really hard to say. What I can say though is when we've been out, we went to Barcelona, the big conference, etc., and I've been traveling extensively this spring, meeting all our customers, and it's fantastic to see the reception. There are 2 out of the 3 categories where they're not going to jump up and down and say, hey, we're going to sell loads of it, but they're so happy that we're back. Because for the last 5 years, we've been out there talking about care, and we've been selling these, which are kind of self-selling, but now they really feel, hey, you guys are back, and they love the idea of, a senior shelf and all that stuff. And when you go through, most of them are maybe my age, 40s, etc., then you start relating to the fact that it's a little bit difficult with a TV or whatever it is. So, yeah, good hopes for it at least.
Yeah. Very, very interesting, and it will be very interesting to follow that. And thank you, Jörgen, so much for the presentation.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for listening in.
Thank you.